Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second podcast for Season 12. I'm your host again, Saul Goodman Jr., and I'm, of course, joined in the broadcast booth by Dorsey, as always.
Hello, everyone.
Tonight, we are rolling deep in panelists. We have Jay-Z in the booth.
What's good?
We also have returning again for the second week in a row, Oswald.
What's going on?
And we have Slays tonight.
Yo.
Slays promised to trash talk everyone in the league, so of course he gets an invite in. And then we have Puyo coming in from Seattle, speaking of trash talking.
Scrub! What's up, guys?
And we have the answer from LAFC.
What's up, man?
And then, of course, last but not least, we have You Don't Vape.
Yeah.
All right. All right, boys, we are 1 week into the season. Everyone's played 7 games at this point, unless it's been rescheduled. So we're going to take a look at how everyone's faring in these early stages, first starting with Super League, taking a look at the top 7, that being Atlanta United with 19 points, Arsenal with 17, Inter Milan and Manchester United both with 16. Benfica in that stellar marquee matchup picked up 3 points and are tied in a 3-way tie with Orlando Pirates and Juventus at 14. So of those people, what do you guys think about those teams, how they've done so far? Not all at once.
Okay. The biggest surprise to me is Arsenal sitting as high as they are. I guess a lot of times I try not to think too far into the standings right now because some people have had more like a little bit easier schedules than others. I don't know if that's necessarily the case for Arsenal, but it's definitely like from the preseason podcast to this one, I don't think we anticipated them being as high up as they are. A team I was a little bit shocked that it wasn't up there in the top 5 was AC Milan, but the biggest shock to me is definitely Arsenal.
Yeah. That was a common answer. Dorsey, though, he mentioned AC Milan. You're the inside scoop here. What's going on over there?
It's just taken us a little bit of time to really gel this season. There were some returning pieces, but we also didn't secure the final roster until the last, I'd say, few days before the season started. We got our butts kicked by Juve, and that hurt, but we bounced back from it well on Wednesday. And then last night, we basically just threw away 2 results against Man City and Atlanta and should have come out of there with at least 4, if not 6 points. And so we'll clean things up. We'll get things sorted out. I'm not too worried about us. But, going to Arsenal real quick, they haven't played the toughest schedule, and they will admit that. And I think you can look at the stats and see that. But they've beaten the teams ahead of them, and so you can only give them credit. And this is a team we talked about as maybe a relegation team going into the season. I think they've already got enough points on the board to, end that argument. So now it comes, do they stick in the top 6 race? Do they fall to mid-table? We'll find out as the season goes.
Yeah, speaking on the Arsenal, I was surprised to see them up there, but once looking at the schedule, just looking at the table, I mean, they haven't beaten anyone above 9th place Tottenham. I mean, they drew Lyon, which was in 8th place, but pretty much everyone they've played's been mid to bottom half of the table, and I mean, they don't make the schedule, they just have to go out there and play, and they're doing their thing, because honestly, at the end of the year, into the season, what really hurts is you drop in points to the teams that you should be beating. And so they're doing a good job.
Arsenal's up there. They've been playing a bunch of shitters.
I'm surprised as well. They have only conceded 4 goals. That's speaking about their defense. But yeah, that's true. They haven't faced top tier teams. Once we see that they're gonna start facing top teams, that's when we're gonna see if they really have the talent to stay up there.
Yeah, I mean, with only being 7 games in so far, you've played a little over a third of the entire league. So it's only a taste. And someone like Arsenal, benefited from having an easy first 7 games, and it'll even out for that next 7. So then we'll see what these teams are really made of.
Yeah, I'm not going to say they're going to collapse like last season's Lazio did, but so far they're kind of giving me that vibe. They got off to a hot start. They're high in the table. I mean, sure, they face weaker competition so far, but I mean, they still got to play the big boys, but we'll see what happens. They can either come out and perform well and show that they deserve to be where they are right now, or they're going to crash and burn. I don't really see a middle ground for that.
We'll even say Lazio crashing and burning, they still finished 4th. They didn't weren't in the title race obviously the last couple of weeks, but they still had a very impressive season. I think if Arsenal were to finish in this season's top 6 with all the teams that came in with title aspirations, I think that would be a really, really good achievement for them. I think the most interesting result I've seen in the first 3 game days was last night's marquee matchup. Inter had been running through everyone. They had their first draw. But, they still look like they were, the favorites to win that one. And Benfica had been having a couple struggles here and there. And then Benfica go and whoop Inter's butt 4-1. I think kind of making a statement that, hey, we're still here. And the Inter, hey, this isn't just your league to be given. So I thought that was a fascinating game.
Yeah, I was surprised about that game as well. I really thought Inter Milan was going to beat them. They were the favorites, knowing that their full team is pretty much Viva, knowing good things about Viva. But yeah,
the one thing that slightly worries me with it being Atlanta is now that we are playing a rejuvenated Benfica and a Inter side that's looking to want to bounce back at their last match day. So it's going to be great for Wednesday, but we should be able to handle it.
Yeah. Well, we want to talk about Atlanta. The formations changed, some new players brought in. I think you guys could. We don't need to get into the Milan Atlanta game. I think you guys easily could have lost that one last night just with the last second goal to tie. But overall, a really good start. Did you guys expect to get off to this hot of a start?
I mean, personally speaking, I know the squad has ambitions to compete and win the title if we get in that situation. So far, we are where we expected to be. I mean, there's Exiled has done, and like Will and Goat have done a wonderful job rebuilding the team off of last season, adding in pieces like 5-6, Jammy, myself, Money. Like it's like a new group and it's a new culture in Atlanta, and it's only gonna be up from here, at least like the way I see it. The only like slight concern I could see is if people can't make games, because we aren't exactly the deepest roster. I think we only have like 13 or 14 rostered players, like not counting the people that are out on loan.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Real life Chelsea.
How many people do you guys have out on loan that you could bring back?
I think it's like 5.
It's a fair amount.
I mean, yeah, it is a fair amount, but at the end of the day, like it's better at them to go get game time in like other clubs in the Super League or like League 1 or League 2 than it is just to sit the bench and wait for their time. It helps us out more in the long term than it would in the short term just to have them around. Then if we need them, I mean, if there's options in the loan, of course, they can get called back. But I mean, we got a very solid team, and I can definitely see us up there competing all season.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. We've kind of touched on a few of these teams in the top 7. We haven't really talked about Orlando, the League 1 squad that is now in the Super League in that top 7. Have any of y'all seen any of their games, or what are you guys thinking? That transition seems to be doing all right for them.
Right now, I'm kind of just looking at who all they've played, and I get the more Arsenal vibe. Their toughest competition was that Inter squad, and they lost 3-0. And after that, I mean, they're playing bottom tier teams, mid-table to lower table. So I mean, like I said, they're not dropping points. They're up there, but I don't think we're gonna really see how they transition until they start playing those top 8 teams.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I would agree. Just judging the results, they've beaten teams that I think that they should beat. But they're going to struggle against some of the top tier teams. I still feel that they're going to be probably around the mid-table for winning League 1 last year. I don't think they're going to be in contention for the title this season. Maybe next season if they make some improvements, but they'll they'll probably most likely just finish up probably around mid-table.
Yeah, I'll be curious. I'm excited to play them. So right now their manager is away for a few weeks. Their co-manager I think was away the first game day or two. So they've kind of been maybe not having their very best lineups and maybe not the best organization. And these guys have been around for a long time. So I do think that first season in Super League from League One is a transition. You're playing a lot of teams that you haven't played in league yet, and you're facing a higher level of competition each game day. So I think I can see them sticking in the top 6. I can see them slinking back a little bit in the mid-table, but I think the entire season that's going to be a tough game for anyone if they're on your schedule.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't count them out. They were a strong squad in League One, and I think they'd have plenty of talent to move up in that Super League. So we've touched on good surprises in Arsenal and Orlando a little bit. How about on the other spectrum, maybe outside the top 7, the teams that have been a disappointment so far? I saw quite a few answers that were the same. So
I'll touch on this. PSG is definitely first one to come to mind. For them to, I know it's just the preseason cup, and we don't want to hype it, but watching their stream from the preseason cup, they played very, very well. They were holding teams scoreless. They're still kind of struggling to put some goals in, but I mean, 1-0 victories is the same as a 5-0. You still win, but they've just been struggling to put goals. I think they finally scored this past game day and snuck out a draw. It's tough to see them, towards the bottom of the table. And it was definitely a team that I was kind of hyping up in the preseason podcast, thinking, I don't think people should sleep on these guys. I think that, Stay High's got some people coming in that they might be pretty good, and they've been pretty much a disappointment, I would say.
I don't want to be that guy in the negative Nancy, but I mean, I kind of expected PSG to be where they're at, just based off of. I hate saying this, but it's just they've just been on a steady decline ever since they finished 3rd one season, and Stay High's just been chasing the dragon ever since. And I mean, this could probably be the season that they go down. Last season was really close, but I think this one's probably gonna be it. It is 7 games in, anything can change, but I just don't see a way out unless drastic changes happen in a good way.
I agree. I really thought PSG was going to be at least mid-tier table. They're always with a full 11 looking for friendlies. I really thought they had a lot of chemistry, and it's a really disappointment looking at bottom table.
I will say that. Go ahead.
So yeah, just touching on PSG, basically, staying towards the bottom of the table. I actually do think, I personally, just watching them play, I've done a couple of fill-ins with them. I really do think that defensively are strong. What I notice is in the midfield they are having a little bit of struggles. But I do think that if you look around them, they're conceding 7 goals in 7 games. Other teams around them are conceding 14, 23 goals. I think that it's just a slow start to the season. Do I think they're going to be a mid-table team? No, not at this point. But do I think that they're going to be bottom, in the bottom couple and get relegated? I don't think so. I think Stay High, he's a veteran manager. I think he's going to pull his stuff together, and I think he's going to fix his team up, and I think they're going to get a couple good wins in, and they're going to get to escape the relegation zone this season.
Hopefully they score more than 1 goal in 7 games.
Well, so that's the thing, is the offense has to pick up, but the flip side is they've only conceded 7. And you look at, I think last season, their issue was their defense. They actually had a top 5 or 6 offense. Of course, that was Lupe doing a big carry job, but the problem was they had a really poor defense. So far, it seems like the defense has actually improved. And I don't think you've ever seen a team get relegated with anything close to conceding a goal per game. Eventually, those goals will come. You'll pick up some 1-0 wins. You'll pick up some draws. So
yeah, exactly.
It's not impossible that PSG will go down. I do expect them to go out. I think the team for me that's in that area that I'm a little disappointed by, actually there's a couple. Leverkusen in 16th. I think I expected a little more. It looks like a lot of the results have been close. They've maybe just, a couple plays here and there's been a difference. But I did expect them to be a little higher. And then Villarreal was a team that I warned if they didn't quite have things ready to go by the start of the season, they might start off a little slow, and that might slump them in for the whole season. So they're sitting there in 18th right now. I know the talent on that team, should get them above where they're at, but they've gotten off to a slow start so far.
I'm more surprised by Liverpool. Only 2 goals for. I mean, Champ and Rowdy up top. It's just, and they got 23 against. Like, it's just, I didn't expect them to be in dead last at this point. I definitely expected them to be in that 15 to 12 range, but I definitely didn't see that coming. A negative 21 differential, three game days in.
I will say for them, they have played an absolute murderer's row. I think they basically only played like the top 8 or 9 teams. So I think what's really interesting to me is in the preseason podcast, we talked about Arsenal and Liverpool. That was 2 teams that got talked about as maybe relegation candidates. I think if you flipped their schedules and you gave the other one, like you just switched who they played so far, I don't know if Liverpool's as high as Arsenal. I don't know if Arsenal's as low as Liverpool, but I think Liverpool would be above Arsenal. I think they've just had an unbelievably tough schedule. They haven't been able to get things going, and I think if they can stick it out until they start to play some teams more around their area, I think they'll be fine. But it's a tough way to start the season, having this many losses back to back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, their goals allowed, they're leading that category by the amount that PSG has given up. So it's kind of interesting to see how tough that schedule has been, and then how many goals they've let in. And then just circling around to PSG real quick, we talked about Lupe carrying, and then I think the expectation was that PSG's offense was going to struggle a little bit this season. But then Lupe came back, and he's actually played in, I think it's 3 games at this point. Perhaps he played last night and those stats aren't in, but he's played a few games. So it's interesting that even with him coming back, that offense is still struggling. So it tells me that either he's not getting the ball enough or he's just not getting it in positions where he can do damage. So that's something to keep an eye out to see if they can fix that going forward. And then you'd see a climb from them because their defense is mid-table so far. Any other teams that you guys want to touch on as far as disappointments so far?
Real Madrid. I really thought they were going to be a little bit up, like towards Lyon area. With all the signings that Daja was doing, Macro, Gummy, and I don't know if you guys saw, but he was looking for a goalkeeper on the Discord, so I don't know what's going on.
With him looking for a goalie, that's because both of his goalies weren't available. But, I mean, if you've looked recently, he's brought in Perfect Mode. He's brought in Kaliwa King, Alexinho. Like, he's definitely looking to improve the team. Like, there's no safe spots for anybody, really. I feel like it's just another one of the syndromes. Like, they played really well in League One, coming up to the Super League, just like with Orlando. Orlando's probably had a little easier times getting back going, but it's just they're playing tougher opponents than they're used to playing, and obviously with the roster turmoil that they've had to start the season, like it's just gonna take a little bit to get things going. But I feel like they're a team that could probably finish comfortably mid-table once they get everything going. Because the key when you first come up is to stay up. Like, that's the most important thing. And do I think they're gonna do that? Yes. Just right now, they just have to keep the ship afloat and start picking up some results. Because anything I know of, like, at least playing with that team last season, as soon as things gets going, it gets going. So.
Fair enough. All right. Well, we will move on to the next league, over to League One. Taking a look at the top 7 over there, of surprise at number 1, Santa Clara sitting with 19 points. Then Valencia and Monaco are tied with 18 points. Seattle and LAFC are tied with 15 points. And then Atalanta and Young Boys are tied with 14 points. So of that top 7, what do you guys think of those teams so far?
I personally I'm very surprised by Santa Clara. Haven't seen too much of them. We matched them in smalls. They're very good quality side on early on in the season, but I did not expect them to go undefeated early on. Obviously, 6-1-0 is a great record. It's stellar, and they haven't played cupcakes as well. They've played solid AS Monaco team, a very solid LA Galaxy team as well. So they haven't been playing bottom level teams. Another team as well is LAFC, one of the other 2 undefeated teams. They also are 4-3-0. Looks like they're struggling to the couple ties have been just struggling on the offensive a little bit. Like just couldn't get the offense rolling with 2-0-0 ties against mid-table teams at this moment. But they're a very solid squad with some decent wins in there as well.
Yeah,
I think I'd like to go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, Dorsey. Yeah, I think Santa Clara is definitely a big surprise. They played some good teams and got some good results, but they've also played some not so good teams and took care of business. The biggest thing is, they're not really putting in the goals that a lot of the other, top 4 to top 8 teams are putting in. So that might catch up when they start playing, the tougher teams like the Wolves or the LAFC or the Atalanta. I think those games might catch up, and you might see them fall. Valencia, I think, is basically going to finish towards the top. And LAFC, I was shocked with some of the signings that they brought in up top, that they would be scoring more goals than what they have. But I mean, time will tell. I think they will definitely put it together, though.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
I think LA, their defense has been surprising to me. Like, I didn't expect their defense to be this good. In the offense, you would expect a few more goals. I think the team, which we got someone in the party who can talk about a little bit. The team that surprised me is Seattle. Came in originally, we're going to be a League 2 team, and from some preseason play, and we were hearing is that they had a really good possession style, and they knew what they were doing. And we had a couple of teams drop out in League 1, decided to move them up, and it looks like that was a good decision for everyone involved. So Puyol, you want to kind of explain how your first week or so has gone in PCN and what you've seen and what's worked?
Yeah, so in terms of Seattle, we had not the best start in terms of what we're looking for personally. We had our very first game ever in PCN. Of the 11 starters, I think we had 10 guys. It's our first season in PCN. 9 of those guys have never played competitive 11s before. So our first game against AS Monaco, a quality team, we went down 2-0, and fairly so. It was just a rough game. For our second game, we made some changes. We got rid of our center back, one of our main center backs. He's been playing with us for 3 years, also in a couple of buddies. We moved him up to midfield. It made a big difference. We moved someone else back to center back. Our striker started performing, and we got a 7-0 win there. Since then, we've been on a little bit of a hot streak. Did have a loss to America. It was very disappointing. I do believe the stats are something like 13 shots to 2. They scored 4 minutes in, and we just kept pushing and just couldn't get the 3 points there. So, but we've also beat some quality sides. LA Galaxy is a very good team. Put up 4 goals against them, but on the downside, again, conceded 2 as well. So a lot of these games we're putting up, like I said, 25 goals in 7 games. 6 games actually, because we had a default. We're averaging over 4 goals a game, but the problem is right now defensively, we've had different 4-back line. We haven't had the same back 4 in the for a single game yet. So we're trying to get the defense sorted out.
Yeah, I'll touch on them. I'm, no offense, Puyol, I'm still not completely sold on Seattle. They haven't really played anybody outside the top, inside the top 10 in the league other than Monaco. And obviously we see that they lost that game. Everybody else has kind of been towards the bottom of the table. Again, you're beating the teams that are on your schedule. So, I mean, there's nothing I can't say anything. You're getting the results you're supposed to get. I'm just not completely sold just based on the schedule yet. I mean, like I said, time will tell with them. So we'll see.
Yep.
Yeah, and also on that, the 25 goals it's only matched by Valencia, and that's impressive in that aspect. But I'm also, I play for LAFC, so I gotta feel like I need to see more quality teams being played. Because like Oswald hit on, the one time you played a team in the top 9, it was Monaco, and you lost, and then a lot of your goals kind of came against the lower tier teams, against Braga and Crystal Palace. I think where you put up 5 or 7 goals against them. And we've all played those games where you get a defense that gets down after like 3-0 and they kind of just collapse, and then the goals just keep coming. So, I mean, it's impressive for it to be y'all's first season in PCN together and for y'all to be doing so well. But I think it's also with the whole Arsenal thing where we got to see you guys play Santa, like the 1 through 8. We got to see y'all play all of them and see where y'all are still at.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I agree with you on that as well.
All I want to say is Atalanta's been sitting on the quote unquote top teams, but keep going.
Thank you for that expert analysis, Slays. It's interesting. We're talking about Seattle, them not playing quality opponents, but my team, Valencia, we haven't really played quality opponents either. We've played one team in the top 10, and we've played primarily lower end teams, and we've beat up on those teams. So, like, in my opinion, good teams, they beat the teams they're supposed to beat, and then the teams that are more competitive, you have to figure out a way to win. In my opinion, Seattle and us, Valencia, have only checked off one of those boxes, and we still, the other box is it hasn't been answered yet. So until we actually get through more of the season, I think that's when we'll figure out more about both of these teams. Have the same goals for our defense has played a little bit better than Seattle's, but again, it's not against the top tier teams. So we have LAFC and Atalanta coming up on Wednesday, and I think that's going to be a good test for our squad personally. So I'm excited to see how those games go.
Yeah, so I'll just speak on that. Like, I think the difference is why we're separating, I guess, you and Seattle is that with the preseason podcast, everyone had y'all finishing top 6. So for y'all to be up there, it was expected. So not saying that you haven't played the top competition, but it's who you've played, but you were expected to be up there anyways.
Absolutely. I would agree with the answer on that. Like, with the type of talent within the team, everybody expected Valencia to be towards the top of the table. And a lot of times we were talking about Seattle, towards the relegation zone, maybe even mid-table. So, I mean, yeah, similar schedules, but I mean, I think Valencia's getting the results we know that they should, and we expect that they're going to get.
That's fair.
Yep, only time will tell.
Yeah, that was my point there, is that
Absolutely.
You may have the most talent in the world, but if it doesn't play out on the field, that's why we keep grinding in Valencia, we keep practicing, because we know that you're one step away from dropping to mid-table at this point, because it's so close. There's only 8 points separating first from ninth, and only 9 from first to 11th. So it's still very close.
I will say a team that really surprised me where they're at is Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
Definitely expected them to be higher up.
Go ahead, answer.
So I was definitely expecting them to be higher up there because Smoke Break's been non-stop ever since the end of season 11 with all the signings and brought in a solid defense, solid goalkeepers. I was definitely expecting them to be up top 5 with defenses instead of being like tied for 6 with goals against. And if I remember correctly, yeah, they've played kind of half and half, top table and bottom table teams.
I mean, I would say I'm a little disappointed in Wolves, but I mean, honestly, like, they've beaten the teams that we think that they were going to beat. What they drew 0-0 against you guys, which I think you guys are pretty, you match up pretty well. I think that game could have gone either way. And they lost to an Atalanta team that I think has surprised a lot of people in League One to be as good as they are. My opinion on that one, but I think they've done well against the games that they played, but they lost to an Atalanta team that I think a lot of people didn't think they're going to be as good as they are, but they've shown up and they've played well.
Another team that I'm really not really, but I'm disappointed at is RB Leipzig. They newly promoted from League 2. Yeah, they might have promoted because of the default against Barcelona and everything, but there's still a lot of quality in that team. Their center back, Shadow SG, put up some good stats last season. and then plus the signings they had with the goalkeeper Motosierra, and then strikers Momo, Benfica. I really thought they were going to be like elite, like more up. They've been playing mid-table teams and everything. They tied against LAFC and everything, but if they can pick it up more, I think they can actually finish up there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one thing we're seeing in League One, especially in the bottom teams, this is a deep stat dive because if anyone knows me, they know I love my stats. If you add up the goals for 12 through 20, you'd have one more goal scored than Valencia and Seattle. So like we're seeing it more frequently, I think, in League One, where this game is just harder to score. And some of these teams that are towards the bottom just haven't figured out how to do that consistently enough. And so they're not allowing a ton of goals, except for the bottom three plus Frankfurt. But they're not scoring enough to get those points that they need. So I think that's one of the things we're seeing in this FIFA. And it's the first season of FIFA 20, so it's kind of developing as it goes. But it's something to keep an eye on going forward, I would say.
Yeah, that's been our issue with LAFC is we've had no issues with the passing and the creation. It's just putting in the back of the net. I mean, we've hit posts so many times and we've soared so many shots, and just taking the right shot has been the issue. I mean, we're averaging 6 to 7 shots a game on target, and then just not putting them in the back of the net. And we've brought in a couple players that we think can help fix that. So we're hoping to turn that around there. Defense is playing lights out. I mean, I can't complain with my situation. It's a first for me. I'm used to making 10 saves a game. I'm averaging like 2 right now.
That's a good problem to have.
Yep.
We touched on this a little bit on Wolverhampton. But are there any other teams in League One that have disappointed you so far that you think should have been higher up and just aren't? Or is this kind of played out the way you thought it would, other than the 1 or 2 surprises we already touched on?
For me personally, I think Seattle have actually been disappointing. Going 5-2 early in the season against, like you guys said, not a tougher schedule is a little bit disappointing, especially for the future, going to be one of the first teams to be in their second season ever in PCN and winning Super League next season and S Cup this season. You do expect them to start to a better start, but so it is a little bit disappointing on the defensive end. But we have my boy Abdin and Yoshiko Mania putting up almost 20 goals together. I think we're gonna get it ready in time. I think Seattle's gonna win this title. And after we face these better teams, we're going to prove that we're winning the games we need to be. We're going to win the games we have to. And I think we're actually going to win the title. We're going to beat Benfica in the S Cup championship game 4-1 and avenge my Viva boys. I think that's what's going to end up happening.
I was wondering when the Seattle trash talk would come into play. It's been real mild from you so far. And then all of a sudden... gloves came off and we're throwing punches. Here we go.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say Seattle's been playing
my tall rubber boots.
Some not good teams, but we're going to be playing them. When is it? Wednesday? I'm expecting a 5-0 dub, but.
All right, Slice, I got you, my boy. We'll put up 5 on you. You don't gotta worry about nothing.
Seattle's gonna get sent to relegation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where. Technically, first season in PCN, I think we already won the Champions Shield because we beat Atlanta and Benfica, who have played in Champions Shield. We beat both of them in Smalls. So I think that's a Champions Shield trophy right there.
Oh, we talking about Smalls now. Okay. Okay.
Lord. To get back on topic a little bit.
No, Dorsey, let it go.
No,
Getting deep in here.
League 2 matters. Okay, we gotta let people listen to League 2 before they gotta go to bed.
Fair enough.
I do love all these competitions. The Champion Shield. We need to create that. It's a new thing. But I think for the most part, League One is, other than teams we've already touched on, I think it kind of sorts itself out. I think there's some teams that are in the maybe lower mid table that obviously they think they can improve, and obviously they can. They just gotten off to maybe not the best start. And I think the teams at the bottom, Braga, apparently they like to just play with an any controlling the defense, and Crystal Palace have kind of just been struggling to get the numbers. Schalke and Wolfsburg obviously have had some manager issues. Frankfurt's a team that came together late. They're getting it going. They know it's going to be a struggle, but they're kind of going. I think everyone else above them probably would like to be higher, but I think everyone kind of makes sense. I don't think there's any teams in the bottom half at least that you're looking at and you're just like, wow, that's a shocker.
There's a team that I'm not necessarily surprised at where they're at. It's more of a statistic. I was expecting Fiorentina to put up a lot more goals. I mean, I played for them last season, and we shattered the goals for record, and I only have an average of about 1 a game compared to last season when I think we were putting up 3 a game. It's just showing how different this FIFA is for attackers.
Yeah,
that's a good shout.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we will move to the last but certainly not least league. We had over at League 2, taking a look at the top 5 teams because there's only 14 teams in this league. Number 1 is at Barcelona. Number 2 is Atletico Madrid, of course, over at Oswald's camp. Number 3 is Porto, tied with Atletico at 15 points. And then Roma and Napoli are tied at 14 points. So looking at that top 5, what do you guys think? Is it kind of how we expected? Are there any surprises? What is your pulse on this?
My pulse on this is the biggest surprise to me is Porto. Preseason, we kind of anticipated maybe they'd be up in the top 5, maybe mid-table. But they beat Barcelona, which they're the only team that's beaten them. I pretty much see is what was gonna be. Barcelona is coming out. I mean, they played some a little bit softer of a schedule, but they've beat who they're in front of. As far as us, we've had 2 really solid game days, and then we had 1 game day that was just a flop. We had a tough game against Roma. We lost 1-0 on a goal that should have been cleared off the line and ended up, trickling in. And then we were just mentally just drained from the Leicester debacle with the default that we had to take with that one, and then the tough loss against Roma. And Napoli thumped us. They came out and thumped us 4-0. A team that I feel that we're definitely better than, and we should beat on any other night, but they came ready to play and we weren't. And, that was our other loss. Roma is a mixed bag. I see them they come out and they put up some goals against, teams, and then they come out and they kind of struggle against teams. It's kind of, from what I've seen watching them, it's like, are you going to get the good Roma or are you going to get the okay Roma? If they put it together and they're consistent, they're definitely going to compete for the title. I know everybody in the general chat is riding them to that easy peasy title. Slays being one of them. That tagged Roma and everything. So I mean, that's my thoughts on the top of the table.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with Oswald. I mean, Porto was about the only team that really surprised me. Just mostly because looking at their roster, I've never heard of any of them, to be honest. I mean,
yeah. When I saw them in the top, I had to take a look at their roster because I wasn't sure who was on it, and that didn't help me. I have no idea who these guys are, but credit to them being in third right now in that promotion zone.
Yeah, I agree. I was not expecting Porto up there as well. I know I didn't see much of them, but I know we played them in a friendly and once in smalls, and I think on aggregate we smacked them 15-0. So to see them third place in League 2, that's pretty surprising. Just shows that it's a good thing Seattle's promoted, or else I don't think we would have dropped the point. Put up maybe 200+ goals in this
Can
league.
we make a League 3 for these guys already?
Oh my goodness, this guy.
I'm enjoying this thoroughly. But one thing to keep an eye on in that Porto squad is their goal differential is only 2. And that you look at the rest of the table, that puts them below 8th as far as the top 8. So that's something to keep an eye on. Maybe they've just been getting lucky and they don't have enough talent to keep it going, or I can't put my finger on it right now, but that goal differential worries me going forward. Something to keep an eye on for this squad.
Well, in all fairness, Saul, I mean, you could look at it and they could play an Everton squad on Wednesday that's conceded 21 so far, and they could have a 4-0 win, and their goal differential is right up to 6.
Sure.
And they're just tied up there with Barcelona Atletico. So I'm not too worried about that. I mean, at the end of the day, you keep winning 1-0, draw 1-1. Like, your goal differential is not going to be that high, but as long as you're getting points, you're going to stay up there.
That's very true.
Wait, Doris, can I say something about Barca? If Smurf doesn't get them up from League 2, can he get banned from managing?
I don't think he's managing there anymore.
Oh, he is.
He is. But...
Oh, he is?
Yeah, well, he's told me he is managing Barcelona like until he dies. So yeah, I do think the pressure is really on the season. I think I mentioned that in the preseason podcast, and they're off to a good start. It's really, I think now, I think they need to start to put some distance between everyone else. I think they need to just build up a lead because there is that 3rd promotion spot this season. So it could be a fallback for a team that if they do falter, it was on the first or 2nd. But I think it's also going to be. I think it's going to be a battle all season. I mean, obviously, 2 weeks from now, we could see 2 or 3 teams just clear out ahead. But Ajax, I don't think we've mentioned them yet, but they're in 7th with the game in hand. If they win that game in hand, they could potentially be 2nd or 3rd. So it seems like Giannis may finally have a team that can get himself out of League 2. He really wanted. He was kind of unsure on coming back. I think at times he really wanted to, but he was like, "Yeah, I don't know. It's been tough." But in the end, he was like, "I'm going to do it. I'm going to get the squad that can get me promoted." So, they're tied for the best defense so far with Barcelona, and it's another squad I wouldn't sleep on just quite yet. And PSV are the early favorites to potentially be kind of like Fiorentina last year. We'll see if they get the points that they did, but in terms of scoring a lot and conceding a lot, they're your fireworks team so far.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you touched on Ajax because One King is one of my favorite players in all of Discord. I love seeing his pictures, but even more so than that, I'm excited to see this Barcelona versus Atletico Madrid game coming up. I know the marquee matchup team flagged that one as a potential marquee matchup to keep our eyes on because it's 1 versus 2. I mean, you can't get better action than that, even if it is League 2. That's a good game. That's with quality opponents, and you're seeing both their offenses and defenses are doing well so far. So it'd be a fun one to watch if we can convince Oswald and Snow to sign up for that one.
I will. I'll go on record right now and say we'll accept that.
Awesome.
If he's on board, we're with it. I think it's gonna be a tough test to see if we bounce back after having a good league night to following it up. That's the biggest question right now I have with my team is we came out and thumped game day 1 and then faltered game day 2. So we came back the 3rd match day, played well. So I mean, it's going to be a test to see how we continue to keep that rolling. And I think the Barcelona is going to be a good test.
And just knowing Smurf's management history, I might have to channel my inner Rio here. And I'm looking at those last 8 matches, and those are easily games that Barcelona could sell so hard. I mean, they play everyone that's in the top 6 right now, those last 8 games.
Rio would be very proud of you, or whatever his gamer tag is right now.
Pui right now.
Because he called that one last season, and I'm sure he'll be tooting that horn until the end of time.
He called that, and they started selling that next match day, and that's actually what got Fiorentina the auto promotion. So we thanked him very much for that one.
Yo, so can we have a little Seattle versus Atlanta murky matchup? I know the competition isn't there, but I'm sure most PCN would like to see them get smacked.
Also,
I don't know if
that.
6-0 game would be a good game for that.
We're going back to League 1. We're getting off topic. Any other teams that you guys wanted to touch on as either a good surprise or perhaps a bad surprise on the other end in this League Two bracket?
Bad surprise for me is Everton. A team that played last season, I felt towards the end of the season they definitely showed improvement. We're getting a little bit better in results. Weren't getting thumped. And then when we played them, I was expecting, them to have a really, really good team. They were turning a lot of people. And it turned out that, we beat them, I believe, 4-0. But I think it easily could have been 7-8-0 at some point. And, just stuff didn't really fall our way towards that game. But I would say they're kind of a disappointment to me because I expected them to be a lot better than what they've shown so far.
Yeah, I was going to agree with that. That was a team I shouted out as a potential sleeper going into the season, and they bounced back from the first game. I think they conceded 10 or 11, and they've had a couple of draws since then. They did get one win, albeit it was a walkover win on what I'm deeming my shame of the week, which is the previous Leicester City. I'm not going to do this every week, but these guys deserve it. So Leicester City came in the league. It was a brand new team, brand new to 11s in a league, and the first game day, they played without 11, and they didn't have an any. So they had a win and a draw, which got nullified. We were going to reschedule. And the second game day, they were in the middle of beating Atletico Madrid, and Atletico realized they didn't have a goalie. And so they backed out and said, well, you don't have a goalie. We're going to take this win. And then the Leicester manager proceeded to cry to me about how there's so many complicated rules, and we just added that rule, and we're changing things on the spot, and we hate these guys because they're divisions players, and all this nonsense. Said that they could beat any team in PCN any day in divisions, just give them a place and a time, because that's the real games, so the real games that matter. So in case you're listening out there, anybody from that old Leicester team, thanks for folding after 2 game days, because your manager, who also admitted he didn't read the rule book, couldn't get you guys to just follow the rules and play. So shout out to you guys. Well done.
I want to touch on them real quick. So in that game, we go in, and I'm a center back for our team. So we go in. I realize that they don't have a keeper, and I'm trying to get a hold of an admin. So mind you, I'm not really paying attention to the game. I get Y-balled when I'm trying to get a hold of an admin twice, and they score, and then they get another goal, and finally get a hold of an admin, explain the situation, because I didn't want to back out if I just know, like, hey, should we play this out? What should we do? So he proceeded to just let me have it after the game that, we suck, we'll beat you on any game day. And I was just like, look, man, as a manager, like, you got to know the rules. You got to know the rules. You're setting your team up for failure if you don't know the rules. So, I mean, you just got to know, man. And he told me to F off and this, that, and the other. And I hate to take a default, but, at the end of the day, you just got to know what the rules are, really.
Yeah. And that's the basics. So it sucks because it seemed like they did have a competitive team. But I think you've seen a team like Seattle and a few others that are kind of brand new to the league scene, and they read the rules and they figured it out. And there's a few bumps along the way, figuring out where to do this and how to do that. But it's not that complicated. So wherever you guys are, I'm sure you're enjoying your D8 games and beating up on teams there. And good for you.
Yeah, sounds like Seattle.
I will say something that has technically, disappointed me is Oz. I definitely thought y'all were gonna go to break a bunch of clean sheet records and everything for for League Two and averaging a goal against. I just, with the back line and with Jeepers and that, I didn't see that happening.
Yeah, To touch on that, we did give up 4 against Napoli, and like I said, I will take that on me as a manager for taking a tough loss against Roma and the debacle with the Leicester City thing. I just didn't get us up for the game, and that's 4 goals right there against us of the 7, and we were mentally defeated. Again, I told the team that was definitely 100% on me for not getting us up for the game, but I think we understand that we can't just show up. A lot of teams expected us to finish towards the top of the table, and I think the as bad as match day 2 was for us, I think it did us a lot of good as far as like in the camp to make sure that some of these newer guys know that we can't just show up. We have to be locked in every single game. And if we get scored on, like, that's okay. Just let it go back to our style of play. And our style of play is shown that if we're on it, we can beat anybody. So, you know, as bad as match day 2 was, I think it did us a lot of good. I don't foresee us giving up 4 goals against anybody, you know, again. But, you know, only time will tell, definitely.
Fair enough. Well, I think that is going to do it for us. I want to thank Dorsey for co-hosting this podcast tonight. I want to thank all the panelists for tuning in and helping out with the chat. And then, of course, thank all the lovely viewers at home who watched and who also commentated along. You've made it very interactive, and I appreciate y'all. Y'all stay classy until next week. Take care.